Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's You Are Your Vet Talk Show. Dr. Befani Vet. I'm your speaker for today, and I'm Dr. Ajani Vasca. I'll be speaking today on heat stress in poultry. What exactly is heat stress? Heat stress is a condition that occurs when temperature of the beds rises higher than normal and the bed is unable to control it. What causes this condition in beds? It can arise when there is high temperature in the environment and the birds are unable to control it. Another reason why it occurs is when the water available for the beds are not is not very cool. The temperature is high. The water you gave to them too is also hot. Another uh, cause for heat stress in poultry is overcrowding. We all know when the birds are together, maybe you are doing the deep litter system and they are not inside the cages where you know that, okay, maybe there are 2 or 3 different birds inside each cages. They are all on the floor, and the number you put inside a building is more than the number that should be put in. Overcrowding can also lead to heat stress. Another reason for heat stress is when the energy content of the feed is higher than normal. Unless you are manufacturing your own feed yourself, you can't really know what the energy content of the feeds look like. So that will be on the manufacturer's end. Signs of heat stress are you see with, because you have to know what you're dealing with to know how to control it. So to know the signs, what you notice is the beds normally they are scattered around, evenly scattered around in the building. But what you just see them at the edges of each of the building. Maybe you see them at the corner. They are trying to scatter away. They are not huddling together. Okay, yes. When you see them huddling together, then we are dealing with another condition. That means they are too cold. Now you see them at edges of the building. If it is a brooding unit and you are using the heat system, you see them running away from the fire. Another thing you notice is their wings will be far away from their body, trying to get in fresh air as much as possible. And now these birds, they don't have sweat gland. So one thing you notice is they don't sweat because they don't have sweat gland. So one thing you notice is that they'll be panting. See them bringing down their mouth, opening their mouth, trying to get in more oxygen, more cool air. That sign you see is just see mortalities, see them dying without no real cause. When I was mentioning the causes and I mentioned high energy content. Now, what that can cause it will lead to fat buildup, fat accumulation in the body of the birds. And this, you can mostly see it in maybe you are dealing with layers or broilers. Now, what that will lead to is there's already high temperature in the environment, the water is not cooled. Okay, use cool water condition. Sorry about that. Now the water is not cool, the temperature is high, and now there's fat in the body. Fat should be in the body, but not in a large quantity. Let me thickness, large thickness, because now there's high temperature, the water is not cool. Fat in the body, the fat accumulation in the body will also lead to temperature, will also lead to accumulation of heat inside the body of the bird. And heat inside the body of the bird is what leads to heat stress, heat stroke in some cases, in some terminologies. Now, that will lead to heat stress, heat stroke, and that will lead to mortality of the birds. That's another sign that I was trying to get to it. Now, we've talked about the mortality, and we've talked about the cause, we've talked about the sign. Now, how do you prevent this heat stress? How you prevent this heat stress is when you notice those signs I mentioned earlier, what you will do is give their food, give the feed to them early in the morning or late at night when the temperature is not high, and make sure that the water that is given to them is cool. There are some cases where you have to, when the temperature is very high and you're using this tank system, that you have to put ice block inside the water. But you have to be careful of that. That also too can lead to cold shock if you are not careful, if you are not very careful with temperature. Now we've talked about giving their food at the coolest part of the day. Make sure their water is cool and not hot. Overcrowding, avoid overcrowding. Their energy content in the food. If you are the one doing the composition of the feed, you'll be doing the energy content. Ventilation, that also works hand in hand with overcrowding. When the beds are overcrowded, ventilation does not circulate around. There must be cool air coming in to take out the used air inside the building. I've talked about the cause, we've talked about the sign, we've talked about the prevention. What can you do if you notice that your birds are suddenly dying and you are suspecting heat stress? Now, to confirm that it's heat stress, you have to get an expert on the field to help you to assess the environment and let you know that okay, what you are dealing with is heat stress. So, but what can you do if you are leaning towards this diagnosis by yourself? What you can do is the control I mentioned earlier, avoid overcrowding, make sure that the ventilation is circulating around, the water is cool enough for the birds, and the energy content. Now, for the effects, what exactly does this stress does on the farm? Causes economic loss because once the mortality of the birds, there is drop in egg production, you are losing money via egg production, you are losing money by birds dying because if you calculate all the fees and expenses you've spent on each bird from day one to the point of death, if you calculate everything, that's a huge loss. So it's better you prevent all this than for it to happen and then you are losing money and deaths at the same time. There are some questions that are frequently asked about heat stress, and one of them is how can water temperature be kept low during heat stress? I mentioned earlier when I mentioned the ice block, putting ice block inside their water, but that is in extreme hot temperature. So, and with that situation, you have to be careful so that the water won't drop below a certain degree. That can also lead to food shock for the organs of the birds. Another question is how can proper ventilation be optimized to reduce immunity and increase airspeed? Since this person has a lot of grammar. All right, I didn't mention earlier, but one of the causes of heat stress is when there's high humidity. So now this person asked proper ventilation, reduce humidity, and increase airspeed. What you can do is make an opening. If there's no opening in the building already, try to get these our artisans to make an opening in the building to create air, to create opening for air to be coming in and going out. But most of these poultry areas, they are not, most of these poultry buildings, they are not full walled areas. Most of them are mostly net. So what you can do is just make sure that air comes in and air goes out in any way you can do it, in any way that can be accessible to, that can be done. To conclude this segment of You and Your Vet Talk Show, my advice to our dear farmers out there is monitor your pets. Try to notice any change in behavior. Pay attention to your pets. Ensure they are comfortable, properly taken care of, and try to monitor any change in behavior of your pets. Even if they are not eating, make sure you report that to an expert on food or a veterinarian so that they can know what exactly is going on. This will be the end of today's You and Your Vet Talk Show. Until next time, thank you very much.